Peace everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Indigo Blackbird with Moments of Magic. Today's video is going to be language in labor, why it matters. Right now I'm in the playroom with my family, so you may hear some stuff going around in the environment. I know you don't mind, this is a family channel, right? So let's get going. If you see me looking down, it's because I have notes in front of me to keep me on task and to make sure I address these things. So I had downloads come through about this topic. I knew I wanted to speak about the importance of the words that we use, our thought processes, our beliefs, and how that impacts us. So now we're going to discuss this. First thing I have here, do you know what's happening, or have you become the middle woman of your own experience? So in labor, things can be overwhelming, especially if it's the first time you've ever given birth, if you've ever been pregnant, if you've ever been in a hospital setting, aside from maybe visiting someone else or in extreme situations. And you may not notice all that is happening around you is kind of being done without your involvement. There are doctors who just walk in and out. There are nurses who walk in and out. And this could be a hospital setting. Appointments that you set with people who don't really tell you what they're doing. It's just standard procedure. And you don't really know what's happening to you. You can either let it happen to you, or you can be like, what is this? How is this done? Why is it done? Is it completely necessary? You see the difference of experiences that you may have if you ask the questions versus if you don't? This is what we mean when we're saying you've become the middle woman of your experience. Knowing the language in labor that's being articulated to you, around you, directed at you, or being withheld from you can make a major difference in your overall experience. So, the importance of communication. What you tell yourself, how you talk to yourself, what you believe you're capable of, how you think about yourself, what you believe you should be doing or what should be happening, etc., will impact your labor or your childbirth experience. What the people you care about hear from you, hear that you're telling yourself, perceive you to be telling yourself, or say back to you. Also, the things that they say to you as well. So these things are kind of an echo, or can be an echo in your environment. So if you're around someone who's always saying, this is what happens when you're pregnant, or this is what happens when you give birth, or you better not do this, or this is going to happen, or you should never do this because whatever, that is an echo of communication directed at your experience. And you have to decide whether or not you absorb that information and apply it for yourself, whether or not that's a projection or someone else's fear, or if it's completely irrelevant to you and you want nothing to do with it. That language is imperative. Who you surround yourself with can really make a huge difference in your experience. The feedback you receive from the universe. Now, at a bigger level, pregnancy is an initiation for you to go deeper within yourself and to retrieve old parts of yourself and to bring them through in a new way, to reform that energy that was there and to literally be reborn. You rebirth yourself. You're becoming born by giving birth to your child. So whatever you have experienced is going to mirror somehow outside. You may go to like a bookstore and run into someone who's exactly the person you needed to see at that moment, who gave you the best advice you needed at that time, and you'll feel like you're in alignment, you're in flow. You may have experienced some of the things that you never wanted to experience during your pregnancy, but that's still something communicating with you. There's still a part of you that needs to grow or can reflect from that. And yes, this is looking at the good side of things, because the way that I perceive things is that everything is working out in my favor. No matter how I interpret it in that moment, no matter how it may feel while I'm experiencing it, when you look back, things tend to make sense. And so that mystery of the divine is always at play, and there's always a hidden language, a secret language, or rather a silent language that's being communicated with you. And if you're tapped in enough and aware enough to notice and pay attention to the things around you, then you'll start to understand what's being communicated to you and then be able to decipher and also communicate back with the universe, or whatever you want to label that. So the opinions and biases of others, and especially this one is in the medical field. So is information left out that puts you at risk? Also, how do you know what you know is true or not? And how do you know if it's withheld? So is information left out, right? When you have an appointment for something and someone comes in and they're using medical jargon, do they just kind of skip through the thing? Oh, we're just going to take your blood today. They don't say, hey, we're going to take your blood. We're going to use the blood samples that we have today for 4 different tests. And these tests are going to see what conditions your child could possibly inherit. It will check your platelet levels in your plasma. It will check, et cetera, right? That's a lot more detailed than just saying, hey, we're going to stick a needle in you and take out blood so that we can do stuff, right? So having that clearly defined, and also knowing that you can ask questions and have that defined, and it's in fact their job to be sure that they inform you of what's going on. A lot of people aren't doing their job. And if they are, they're just kind of going through the motions, and they expect people to just blindly trust in them because they've been put to this standard and status. And this is starting to fall out. This is starting to become less and less appealing to more people as more people are recognizing that birth is a natural experience and not a medical condition, right? But how do you know what is being told to you is truthful, or if information is being withheld if you've never been in that situation before, right? You want to trust your provider. This doesn't say that all medical providers are not to be trusted. Your OBGYN is not to be trusted. Your midwife is not to be trusted. Anyone who doesn't align with the type of birth that you specifically want to have for yourself is not to be trusted. What it means is you have to be able to engage and to sense and use that intuition that you have that's growing, because part of that is going to become your instinct as a mother, but also it's going to help you to protect yourself while you're in this state. Ultimately, a woman should feel safe during her pregnancy enough to just thrive in her feminine and to have all of her needs met. However, some of the time that we're living in right now makes that not as accessible for most people. So, just so you know, use that discernment. If someone says something sketchy and you see something is going on that doesn't look like what you think it should look like, ask questions or just withdraw. And you know you can decline things. You can say you don't want to do it. You know they'll probably try and maybe fearmonger you, but state that you know about the risks after they've addressed them, right? And that you'd like to have that in writing, because you can sign off a paper also saying that you don't want to do that, and they're supposed to give that to you also so that you have that documented. And like what I like to do, I like to take pictures of anything I sign just in case to have that backed up, right? So an example of this would be I went in for my first pap smear with an OBGYN, and they told me it was just a cotton swab test. They left out information. They didn't tell me that they were going to scrape some of my tissue off with like a scalpel or some kind of metal tool to draw blood and then to swab it. So not only did they cut into me without my permission, they swabbed me and took and collected a sample that wasn't just the tissue, the outside tissue he described, it was also blood, right? So that's an example of someone withholding information and also literally lying to you and or thinking or expecting that you are okay with whatever they want to do to you. These are the types of things that can happen in those old, outdated institutions, and when the view of birth is from a lens that sees it as something that's a condition or a disease or something that needs medical intervention, right? So this is not to scare you, but just to let you know that these things can happen and have happened to people. So you want to make sure that you're aware of what can happen at each stage. And really, honestly, both of my pregnancies, I did not do all of those visits and check-ins. It's ridiculous. You really don't need to. And unless you feel that something is wrong or something, you're a little unsure, maybe a little nervous about something, of course, go in and take care of yourself. That comes from me, someone who doesn't really like to take allopathic medicine even when I'm sick, unless in extreme situations or when I really, really, really can't take it and it seems like my natural remedies are not working at all. And I've been like this since I was a child. This is not just a new, all of a sudden I'm on this kind of wave. Like, do what you feel comfortable with and what sets you or puts you at ease, but just also be aware of these things so that you know how to have that informed decision when the time comes, and that you're aware of how to notice it. And not going was a lot more peaceful, and I saved a lot of money and a lot of time. So another thing is the importance of communication, support from people who understand your language and or who can translate and filter through the BS. This is where having an advocate like a doula, a birthkeeper, a midwife, whatever tier of that resonates with you, can be extremely helpful, or a support person, because they understand what's being said, what they should be telling you, what things they're not mentioning it, and can give you that information right there with you. They can go with you to your appointments. You can have them on call if you do things virtually. You can talk to them about it before or talk to them about it after, depending on where you are in your pregnancy, how many weeks are you, what are the things that you're experiencing. These things are a game changer. Having someone who knows exactly how to talk to you, how to engage in that type of environment or in the home, right? And I'm speaking about this because I think personally, some of the best places to have a doula is in a setting that is outside of the home, just because you're not fully in control. In your home, you can do whatever you want, right? So in places where you're outside of that and where some people have to or feel they have to adhere to or honor the laws surrounding birth, and the kind of sketchy, not really a law, but we're going to just imply this and put pressure on people so they can conform to do this because people don't know any better sort of things, that also happens there too. So, and there are doulas who offer pro bono. So if you don't have quite the budget, there are people who will offer you services for free if you look, or at a discounted rate. There are people who will work with you and have payment plans. There are people who have higher tiers and they offer high quality of care and involvement during your pregnancy, before, if you want fertility treatments, and after for postpartum. I'll say if you need nannying, childcare, like they got it on lock. And a lot of doulas too can really help you with that transition to becoming a parent also. And they understand, especially if they are doulas who've given birth before, they can help you to go through that space, knowing that you'll come out and be received by someone who's literally there to support you. And you can reasonably, they're not your therapist, but you can reasonably vent about these situations and have someone who understands what you're going through and someone who can give you the tools to process that and to come to resolve that will help you to still attain and reach that goal of yours. So also I have here weighing the heart, love, or fear. So the language you communicate, that's a really powerful gauge for you to come back to those laws of saying, okay, is what I'm thinking, what I believe about this coming from a place of fear? Am I worried because I'm a brown person, and if I go in this setting, I feel like I'm going to die because everyone says that this is what happens to us and we need to save ourselves? Like, one, whose fears are those? Are they yours? How true is it? And are you actually threatened by that? What's happening in your environment? Who is there to support you? What do you know? Or are you coming from love? Do you know, hey, my situation is different. I have connections with people. Perhaps my family members are going to be the staff at my birth, or I'm giving birth at home, so this doesn't apply to me. Or the people who this happened to, although it is unfortunate, are not me. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to have that experience because it happened to people who look like me, right? And a lot of the majority of doulas who work with Indigenous and Afro people are going to push out that narrative and talk to you because it's important to know about these rates and things that are going on really all over the world. But the U.S. really has a terrible mortality rate, and the way that they treat women is part of this push of why people are wanting better care and shifting the language in labor and going to places where they can give birth and feel more sovereign. But just so you know, like having that gauge is really, really a great tool to help you to stay balanced and to manage some of the fears that can come up, because it's going to be a wave of different sensations and emotions and experiences. And to kind of keep you balanced and to know what your goal is going to help you to know where on the pendulum you are. So, how does your perspective impact your outcome? Why is what is said around events or situations, or why do they have the capability of influencing your decision-making and thus your behavior? Well, if someone comes in and they diagnose you and say, oh, well, that's wrong, right? You're not bleeding how you're supposed to. It looks wrong. We're going to give you a shot of Pitocin because that's going to stop you from bleeding a bit. And then if your placenta's not out by then, we're going to do something else. And you can't eat, you can't drink nothing. So just sit tight, all right? All good? Great. Having that approach to you can make you feel like, well, damn, I can't do anything, right? But if you have an advocate, or if you're aware that, hey, the body takes time. I just pushed out a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, however many pound baby, or I just gave birth. I was just cut into, I had surgery. My body takes time to process. Not all bodies are the same. Some take longer to heal, right, than others. Maybe there's a little bit more time. what are the risks of these things? If you give me Pitocin, I know that this is going to cause some effects in my body, right? And this is going to lead to a cascade of other things. If I'm not allowed to eat, I'm not going to have the energy. My body's not going to be able to function the way it needs to. And therefore, things aren't going to go at the pace that people think it should go because I'm malnourished. I need the fuel to do these things. So you see how that makes a difference? When you know how to care for yourself and what you need to thrive in these spaces, you're going to have a different experience. And even though you may know these things, you may not still have that outcome. Right. But having a support person where you don't have to think, okay, I have to make sure I drink, I have to make sure I eat, I have to make sure that I don't take the Pitocin because this is going to happen. Like you don't want to be in thinking mode. You need to be in your instinctual brain. You need to be in your animal brain. You need to be free and let your emotions just